Hey guys, thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. And I hope you enjoyed this interview. Guest is with me right here, Michael Ango, who is the partner and head tax advisory and regulatory services at Andersen. Hello, Michael, and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Nancy.
Good morning. Now, let's get started. The Oronsaye report. I discussed this on when was it again? On Tuesday, because it was announced on Monday and it's really been in the news. But we're looking at the fiscal implications, really. Of course, I have the list, the document from the yes. So, are there fiscal implications for this?
Oh, sure, there are, certainly. When you talk about fiscal, you're talking about revenue and expenditure of government. So there is certainly a fiscal side to this. In fact, I would argue that the fiscal side is really the major motivation for the report. Funny thing is that a lot of people don't remember that even after the Orosanye report was issued in 2012-14, there had been two reviews that have taken place subsequently. There was the Goni Aji
white paper.
Then there was even a committee set up headed by Amapepo, which then said, okay, look at the agencies that had been created after 2014 to 2021. And then recently, just in 2022, there was the, I think, Engineer Bele Okeke committee. Yeah, so I think all of this tells you that the government was really interested in trying to get the best deal possible. And in my view, if you're talking about the best deal in terms of the Orosanye report, it's an outcome that, one, reduces certainly the number of government agencies that we have, but two, also brings in efficiency into the agencies that we have, and then last but not the least, then cuts down the cost of government. So to say whether there's a fiscal side to it is like asking
the obvious question.
The obvious question.
No, but and let me play the devil's advocate now. The obvious question actually would also be, would it reduce the overhead of the government? And that is, will it reduce the monies that government spend? Because government also says there will be no job losses.
Yes.
On Monday, I tried to look at majority of the issues, on Tuesday. If the government says it will not have job losses, for example, that means that the government will admit the people that are just go. So if, let's say, this government agency or ministry had 100 people, 100 people were working in an agency already, 100 plus 100 is 200. Yes. It will not reduce salaries and all of that. So explain that.
So I'm very happy you asked this question, because before I came here, I ran a scenario in my head. So I said, we have Moneyline with Nancy in AIT. Let's assume we had money time with Christy.
Yes.
And then we had money issues with Michael.
Yes.
So 3 programs, but similar issues. And then the AIT management says, let's implement our own Orosanye reports in AIT. So we streamline. It doesn't necessarily mean that Christy and Michael have to lose their job. What may then happen is that Nancy does on Monday, Christy then takes the slot on Tuesday, Michael takes the slot on Wednesday. Alternatively, Nancy takes the slot from 11 to 30, Christy does a 11:30 to 12. Whatever be the case, the truth is that at the end of the day, when you talk about efficiency, then there has to be some movements in and out. But
does this your argument hold water in this case? Michael,
I'll tell you something.
With you on this.
I'll tell you something.
This your analysis,
yes,
work.
It will work.
I'm not
just
getting it. Yes.
Let me conclude. So there will be in and outs, but the in and outs don't necessarily mean there has to be people having to leave government. So we could also move Christy to another program. We could move her to the sports desk. We could also say, okay, Christy.
But these are people that have competencies in some things that they were doing before.
Oh, certainly.
These are agencies that already have DGs. You are going to tell those DGs to leave. Well, there can't be 2 DGs in.
Okay, so
do you understand what I mean?
So that's why I said there will be in and outs. That the DG has left an agency, depending on what kind of employment he holds. If he's a core civil servant, he can always be subsumed into the core civil service. He may go and become a PAMSEC somewhere. He may go and become a director, depending on his level. If, on the other hand, he's a political appointee, then, the government can say, well, you've done well here. Let's look around if there's something for you to do in another agency or another government. But it doesn't have to be, everybody doesn't have to remain in government. There will certainly be some ins and outs, like I said. But ultimately, I like to focus on what is the aim. When this committee was set up in 2012, what was the focus? What did the government at that time have in mind? the idea was that, I mean, if you recall then, oil prices had started to dip, there was concerns about cost of governance and all of that. So the whole essence was, look, how can we streamline, you know, the civil service or public service of the Federation, as it were? And in doing that, you know, if you recall, in I think it was 23 or so, or 22, when, you know, Obasanjo just started the, you know, civil service reforms and all of that, there were similar concerns at that time. Monetization, exactly. Yes, and indeed, some people were giving offers. Yeah. Some people were giving parachute payments. Some were said, you know, can you leave if you leave? And people took offers. Some were asked to go to farm and all. So everybody doesn't have to remain in government. At the end of the day, if you and I complain that governance is, the cost of governance is high, then certainly if government then wants to make certain changes or adjustments, there would be impacts. But at the end of the day, when the impact is clear, can we say, if we put it on a scale, can we then say that there was more positive than negative, even if negatives have to do with, for example, job losses and all of that?
Will there be implications for less revenue for the government in terms of some of the agencies? For example, in Naseni.
Very good.
In Naseni that, was it in 2022? Not be you and your folks again. You and your big four guys. Looked at, there's a levy called the Naseni levy, 0.25% PBT, profit above 100 million turnover. Now, for a Naseni now that will be, Naseni will be subsumed.
Naseni is not going to be subsumed.
No, it's going
There's going to be a measure, some other agencies are going to join Naseni.
Naseni to be merged with National Center for Agriculture, Mechanization, and all of that. In this case now, will there still be a Naseni levy?
Well,
because we're not clear about that.
There's an establishment law. There's a governing law for Naseni. That law has not been repealed. My thinking, and Naseni is one of the areas that I also looked at because of the revenue implications, of course. My thinking is that Naseni will then be the surviving entity. Okay, and these other two entities will come under Naseni, because even if you look at their mandates, Naseni has a broader mandate than these other two entities.
And these agencies are under science and technology?
They are all under the same ministry anyway. Yes. They're all under the same parent ministry. Of course, you can look at ICRC, for example, and BPE, even though they are not core revenue generating agencies, but they do they have some, you know, responsibilities which either help to bring in revenue to government or to kind of reduce what government spends. ICRC in particular was supposed to look at the PPP arrangements and all of that, but this is a role that can also be played by BPE. Okay, so for me, I think at the end of the day, what will happen is that some people have argued, and they may have a point, that this is low impact implementation, i.e. government has taken the easy route. You know, they've not looked at the ICPCs, the EFCCs, you know, they've not looked at the FIRS and the customs. But I think we must commend them because they've taken a step. And like they say, a journey of 1,000 miles, you know, starts with one step. So let us see how this implementation goes. And then for me, the real advice to government in this regard, especially for the 12-week implementation timeline, is to say, let us have clear reporting, let's have a framework, okay? And let us also have communication so that at the end of the year, government can put up, you know, do a press briefing and say to the Nigerian people that within the last 8 or how many months do we have left in the year, after we started the implementation of the Orosanye report, in these agencies, this is what we've saved. These are the, you know, if there were job losses, you can also tell us. If there were no job losses, you can tell us. And then say we're going into phase 2. So that those people who are going to be impacted in phase 2 will then understand that if phase 1 went smoothly like this, if government made certain savings, Nigerians can then see and they will have the buy-in of Nigerians. There's something I wanted to say. You see, when you're doing something like this implementation, there's also the optics, the perception, which is very important. And it also could have fiscal implications. If people perceive that this is actually going to bring down the cost of governance, it means that government is then doing something. It has moved a needle. It can then come back to the Nigerian people and say, okay, you know, do something for us also in return. So for me, I think that at the end of the day, fiscal implications will be there. Certainly, there will be cost cuts in expenditure. There should be, let me put it that way. For the revenue side, there is no core revenue generating agency impacted in this you know, phase except Naseni, and like I explained, I'm not sure that Naseni is going to go away anyway. So that revenue of government will not be impacted.
How about the budgets? Because these agencies have also presented their budgets for 2024, and they run into billions of naira. I was trying to pull out the budget for these agencies. Sorry, you have cold? Sorry about that. You know, pull out the budgets for all of them, like Enema, NACA, Ango, and all of that. what will happen to their budgets this year? Wouldn't there be like disharmony for government's fiscal, that is overall fiscal implications?
Not necessarily.
For it. And what will happen to those budgets? Should the government use the budgets of these agencies, for example, and settle those that want to, or, realign
So
the
not
ministry?
necessarily. So what may happen, or what will likely happen for the employee side, personnel costs will remain constant because we're not going to lay off these people. So the personnel side will remain constant. The overheads, for example, if we are leaving the office, for example, we're all in 5 buildings or 6 buildings, and then we're leaving these buildings and we're going to be in 2 or 3 buildings, then certainly the overheads for the buildings we're leaving will be cut. So that will be a savings. Okay? If
How about the buildings they are going to, if they don't have enough spaces? Because I know even in different ministries, people don't have chairs.
Yes.
Generators are not working.
Yes.
Lift is not working.
Yes.
So how many people would you crowd in that environment?
We've not done a personnel audit. We've not done a facility audit. We will
lot.
do that. There's a lot of work. But just the proverbial DG, for example, who then has a Jeep and maybe a Camry in his office, if he's then going to...
assistants and co.
Exactly. If he's then going to come and be under another agency, now he's no more a DG, or he's going to leave the public service, as it were, then, of course, his Camry, his Toyota Prado and all of that then goes back, to the pool, and then we don't have to fuel it, we don't have to buy diesel for his office and all of that. So there would be savings, however you look at it. For the budgets, what will happen is that if there's any need to then go back to the National Assembly and say, look, okay, we passed a budget of X amount, we're not going to use all of this budget in this particular agency. Can you move the budget to another agency? That can be done. If you will say, oh, even within the same agency, initially personnel was 5, but now we think it's going to be 15, but we've made a savings of 10 in recurrent or travels, then please move it to personnel. So they may need then to go back to National Assembly, do some environment, or do a supplementary budget and all of that. It's a lot of work. It's not a tea party.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why I think that, the implementation committee that has been set up has a lot of work to do. I doubt that the 12-week timeline is sufficient, but let's see what happens.
So what then would you say to lawmakers, specifically the House of Representatives, that said, I think was it yesterday, that this is outdated, what President Tinubu is trying to, that is this Oronsaye report is outdated. Because there are even new agencies that have been created. President Buhari created new agencies. These the last assembly, created new agencies, as it were. Agencies that sometimes do not even just make any sense.
So with respect to the House of Reps, I'll beg to differ. I do not think that the report is outdated. Like I said, there have been 3 other committees set up, White Paper Committee, the Amapeple Committee. In fact, it was when I was coming into the studio that someone even reminded me about the Ebele Okeke Committee, and I said, yeah, it's true. Yeah. So you see, what if they have any concerns at all, and they are the legislature, they can always ask the executive to come and explain to them what has been done since 2021, 22, or even since 2014, and what formed the basis for the FEC decision. But I think to say that it's outdated, okay, if you say it's outdated, so what's your alternative? Do we set up another Orosanye committee, or do we set up a Ango committee? So I think we have to work with what we have, so let us work with this and see how far it takes us. If we want to set up another one to do a 2021 to 2024 or whatever it is, yes, some agencies have been created, so they can, you can have just a few people sit in a room, look at the new agencies that have been created and determine. I know that some of the agencies have a timeline. For example, the Police Special Trust Fund, it was 5 years. Yeah. I don't know what's going to happen. Are they going to extend it?
The history we have is like people don't even remember when they create those agencies.
Well, sometimes that happens.
Yes, like for AMCON, I stated AMCON's case on Tuesday. AMCON was specifically created for a 10-year period.
Yeah, 10-year time.
Yes, and it has expired, and nobody's talking about that. But just as we come to the end of the program, I looked at these agencies and I was trying to see if there are also agencies that pay money into the CRF.
Yes, there are agencies that pay money into the CRF.
From this,
yes.
Like which ones now? Then secondly, sorry, Michael, the National Theatre to be merged with National Troupe of Nigeria. I know that there is ongoing work for the National Theatre where the CBN in the last administration had with private sector or bankers committee rather, not even central bank. Bankers committee undertaking project to make National Theatre, a bigger place, more investment. So I'm seeing now with National Troupe, things like that, for example.
Okay, so Nancy, understand that anything that has happened, it's not as if these agencies are going to shut down. Okay, what is simply happening is that your functions are being transferred. So if, for example, you had a surplus, or based on, I think, the recent circular, whereby you had to pay, I think about, I can't remember the figure now, was it 50% of your surplus, 80% of your surplus into the CRF. If you then move that surplus into Agency A, you will still pay the 80%, whatever it comes to, plus the 80% of the surviving entity. So any entity, any agency that pays surplus into CRF will continue to do that. It has only moved from one pot to another. Okay. What's the second question?
National Theatre.
Oh, National Theatre. I mean, like I said, these are low-impact entities. Look, I mean, National Theatre.
Will this increase their efficiency? That's another question.
It is expected to.
Because I think that should be the...
It is expected, and that's an implementation issue. That's why I said, beyond all this talk and shout, somebody has to sit down, and I hope that the SA policy, yes, Hadiza Bala, would really sit down and say, look, this is one deliverable that I must, provide to the Nigerian people, so that at the end of the day, Nigerian people will see and say, yes, at least in this particular regard, the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has delivered.
Thank you very much, Michael.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you for watching. In case this is your first time watching us, thank you. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, drop your comments as well as like, and most of all, share our content.